Okay, here is my Dyson DC44 vacuum cleaner, and in this video I want to talk about and show you how to clear a blockage. So I've had this for 6 months now, and over those months we've used this extensively, almost every other day, and we've, between us, managed to pick up perhaps larger items than the unit's designed for, and once or twice we've now had a blockage both in the head here, both on the entrance into the dust compartment, and once we had a bit of a snarl up with some sticky tape in the actual tube pipe itself. So I just want to talk through those things as well as show you how to clear a blockage in the head, which is exactly what I've got at the moment. So what I want to actually show you also first, though, it's going to be a little bit noisy, is I'm going to connect this up to the unit and let you hear a particular noise that you might hear, because it's a sound that you only get when there's a blockage, and it's also a sound that you might find is a prelude to your main unit stalling. And when I mean by stalling, I mean the actual motor cuts out. So it's a very clever little safety feature that Dyson's got. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to just use the unit without anything on the end, so you can just hear that it's working fine, and this is the normal clear sound, just so you can hear what it sounds like through my camera and the microphone I've got here. So absolutely, as you hear, a nice constant sound. That wasn't with the max button on. We almost never use the max button. We don't find we need it, and we certainly get a much better battery life duration in use without it being used. So I'm now going to just connect the head onto the unit, and obviously without the pole, just so you can see everything in shot. Now you'll be able to see the brush bar rotating, etc. So you know there's power, etc. But if you listen to the motor this time. So what you can hear is a kind of sputtering sound, and if I were to leave that running for about 45 seconds with any kind of resistance at all, the actual motor would stop and cut out and it'd go completely silent. So that's the kind of sound that I wanted to share with you, to give you another audible clue that you've actually got a blockage and you need to check things out. So what I'm going to just do now is talk through the three main areas that we've encountered blockages, and my way of detecting them, and my various tips, as well as show you a real one. So to start with, now I've got quite a bright light behind the camera. We're going to look down the actual area here, the going into the canister, where you've got the entrance pipe, and it goes into the canister, and behind this silver grey plastic you've actually got a slight angled flap. So it angles, if we're looking from the top now, at the bottom it angles to the right, so that the dust and grit and hair goes in a direction that the unit wants to spin in its cyclonic way to get the maximum capacity in the canister. Now this, you can just use your finger. It's not too deep, it's not to anything, and you'll feel that the flap that I was talking about is slightly movable. It does actually have a hinge point, but it doesn't really close, it doesn't go that way, it only flips a little bit between just to the right centre and the very edge, and you want to make sure that's clear. So I can, with my fingers, poke my fingers right in the end here. You don't need anything special, and I can tell that's obstruction free. You can also, looking in the bottom of the unit, of course I've already emptied this, you can also visually inspect at the very bottom here that the airway is clear. And with all inspections like this, I really recommend that first of all you get yourself a nice small torch that you can just turn on and shine into the area that you're inspecting, particularly before you put your finger in, just in case what you've actually got stuck in your vacuum cleaner is actually sharp or dangerous in any way. So that, to me, I know that's clear. I also know, and I showed you before I actually popped the head on, I know that this is running fine. I could pop a different unit on the end, I could put a pipe or the alternative head, and I know it'll sound good, and this is fine. So I can now pop that aside and put the focus onto the other two main parts. The main tube is the easiest, the next one to do. So what we'll do is we'll just, again, I'll angle this so you can see right down. I've got quite a bright light here, so there you go. Now I can see that all the way through, nice clean image. Again, you'd be using a torch if you haven't got a very bright light again. And the problem that sometimes you encounter with this is it's a little bit deceptive. So the tube itself feels quite a large circumference, and the inside is actually smaller, of course, because running down the side of the internal pipe are the power rails that power the motors in the heads. So people sometimes are a little bit caught out by this, where they don't realise the actual size of the type of items that can go down that pipe successfully. Now the only blockage I've had in this is actually where somebody sucked up some tape, it got halfway down and sort of a stick. So it's literally because it was sticky that it got stuck. And imagine yourself with a great big pipe cleaner, I literally, in this case, I rolled up some newspaper and I was prodding it down, and I managed to push it out at the end, and then eventually cleared all the tape, and then managed to pull the paper back again. So not so nice and smooth. That has got enough oomph to push out any blockages, and I found rolled up newspaper absolutely adequate. So that's happened once, and that's because of sticky tape. Okay, so we're going to turn our attention now to the head. I've already checked that the brush bar is nice and clear, and I know I can spin this quite freely both ways, so without much resistance, putting my fingers on the red bristles, because the black ones are just too delicate to move anything, I can spin reasonably freely the roller both directions. So I've got nothing snarling here, but for this purpose I'm actually going to remove it. I've got a new favourite coin. I use the 10p piece quite a lot, but I've now got a favourite coin. 50 euro cent is even better. So I'm going to unlock this, slide this out nice and quick, just pulling it out there again so it's out of the way. So again, what I'm able to now do is I can see this slot at the back here, which is where all the grit, dust and hairs go up. There it is in the light. And I can again with my finger just check, after having had a good visual inspection, I can see there's no blockages and feel there's no blockages in that part there, which is absolutely fantastic, because the further down this end here, the harder it is to clear. So I'm now going to look at the join where the wheel is. Now, as you can see, you can pretty much straighten it flat. As you know, it goes into furniture really well. So I'm going to have a good look in this pipe, and I can already see in there some obstruction. Don't know why it's not clearing. Now, my fingers, although I can push, you get no advantage pushing. So there's no point prodding your fingers down there, because all you're going to do is push it through, as you can see, a far narrower slat. And it's quite difficult to force things through this way and then try to pull them out. But it's also equally difficult to push things that way to get that this way. So this conundrum I solve with scissors. So the longer the blades, the better. But what I do is I very delicately put them in, so they're open very slightly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip. I'm going to keep turning. I'm going to snip inside whatever I've got inside here. I know it's not going to be anything more than hair, grit, dust and card. And these snipping motions will help reduce the size. So a mixture of this is now going to help just clear the unit, as well as you might be able to grab something. So you might actually feel that you can, there we go, I could feel it when I was cutting it. I grabbed something. Now that literally might have been it. That, a bit of paper, a bit of, in fact it's sellotape folded over. That could have been all that was blocking it. That could have been enough to snarled the dust and the grit. A bit of shaking. Now I'm already getting things falling out just by weight alone. So I'm now going to pop that in the Hoover, the vacuum cleaner itself, the main motor end. And I know I've got the brush off. This is all about getting this gunk out of here. I'm going to quickly turn it on and let's see what happens. Now, sound-wise alone, even though not a great deal's come through the bin, that sounds a lot better. It isn't now stalling, and I'm not getting that kind of coughing sound that the motor was doing. Now I'm going to look down here again, right down the very end. It's quite difficult to see. You can just about see the greyness of the dust at the corner there. And I'm now out of reach from my scissors, and I haven't got anything longer. So what I do next, and I'll have to do another one here because I threw the last one away, is I'm going to use an old metal hanger. All I do is I pull it straight, because ultimately I want to get this here, so it's thin enough to go through here. And I've got to refashion the hook, but I'm just doing this with my hands. You might want to use a pair of pliers, etc. But all I need to do is to make this hook here on the end much smaller. Now it's going to be a mixture of pushing, hooking and pulling, but I'm going to now just pop this in here, making sure, by the way, that the hook is bent back on itself, because what you don't want is this metal thing to catch. So you want the widest part to be smooth both ways, so it can go in and out. So that might not be small enough. No, it's not. Let me just crush that down a little bit more. I've got myself a nice prodding hook with which I can hopefully now clear this obstruction with a mixture of pushing and pulling. So as I said, it is difficult to try and push it all at the end, because the slot at the other end is quite narrow as well. And although you may not get anything out yourself by hooking, what you are going to do is you're going to loosen things. And loosening things, you'll be surprised at what you can then clear using the actual section of the unit itself. And it can often clear things, but I'm pretty curious now as to see what I've got in here, what's actually being drawn inside. So I've actually done quite a bit of pushing here as well. So although this is quite difficult, I'm going to flick out the front here. Okay, that's quite a good wedge. There's no actual real substance to that, so I'm still a little bit still looking for what the cause was, and possibly it was just this bit of tape, and then a real blockage built up behind because it just wasn't noticed. So let's have another look right down here. Let's get the light on there again. I can still see blockage, so that certainly isn't all of it. So it's amazing how much is actually crammed and packed in here, because until you notice, and in this case it was because the motor's cutting out, you're not always aware. There we go, got it. So I actually hooked that this way. So it's going to be quite gross. It's a lot of hair and a lot of matter, but I can feel that felt very clear. Again, let's just prove this to myself. Absolutely, I can now see all the way down, and all I'm seeing is now the insides of the grey tube. I'm going to quickly pop it on. Let's hear the noise I'm after without the stuttering, and perfect. That's exactly the sound you should hear. So I'm going to reassemble it, put the brush bar in, one last little whiz, and I'm done. Okay, so I've popped the brush bar all back inside, one last firing. As you can see, all spinning nicely, all sounds perfect, and apart from the few blockages, absolutely love it, and wouldn't look back. It's a minor inconvenience to do this kind of thing every few months, and the kind of the level of cleanliness that our carpets get, these carbon fibre filaments make all the difference. This just picks up so much more dust, so we absolutely love this head, and I'd certainly never buy a vacuum cleaner without this combination of stiff bristles and fibre filaments again. Okay, so sorry that took so long, and hopefully that's talked through all the various kind of blockages you can get, and I think you've just seen one of the toughest ones going. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment.